Let's see what happens when we go to change our clothes. Oh my goodness. It's clean, it's elegant. The yellow backdrop makes your characters pop. You get these cool animations and the character, the expressiveness, picking a subsection to get the zoom to actually see what you're looking at. Oh. Hi, I'm Tri, and today we're going to be talking about the UI and UX of Donkey Kong Bananza. We'll start with the UI first and then get into the UX. I actually made this video with the intention of just covering one very specific law of UX that Donkey Kong Bananza captures pretty flawlessly, but I figured why not give the people what they ask for and lump in the UI and visuals as well. I've really been looking forward to making this video since I finished Donkey Kong on stream last week, and just want to talk about some of the design choices that the developers made and why I think they did what they did. The team that created Donkey Kong Bananza was none other than the 3D Mario team who last graced our Nintendo consoles with Super Mario Odyssey, and the DNA is pretty evident even down to the type choices. I mean, one of my favorite things that Odyssey did, and a lot of great games do, is incorporate iconography into its text. When someone in the game is referring to another character, put their little face next to it. Something about that little visual is just so nice. It captures you, and as someone who likes to kind of gloss over things and skim, it's a good way to ensure that I'm actually reading the text. So that's a pretty good place to start. How does Donkey Kong Bananza handle its type? The answer? On brand. I'm not just spouting out design speak for the sake of it, but genuinely, Donkey Kong Bananza's type just fits so well with the game. It's got a lot of energy, it's kind of rugged and not super symmetrical, but it's very readable, which is very, very important. Anytime you see text, it for the most part is legible. They do a great job with contrast and especially hierarchy. Take the costume screen for example. The most important text on the screen will be the choices that you can actively make. Having these black boxes against the yellow background makes them pop. And then not just having the selected box be yellow, but kind of bouncing the way it does and the text inside bouncing, it's pretty obvious without even playing what's being selected. They nailed it. But there's more text on this screen. Below you can see what the passive effect or description of the currently selected clothing item is, and it's in white. It doesn't quite pop as much as the black, but it doesn't need to. You also get white text at the top with change your style. When thinking about visual hierarchy, my professors would always do this exercise with us, where they'd display an art piece and ask, where do your eyes go first, second, third, and so on. It's really important for artists to have a handle on this, but it's especially important for apps, websites, and yeah, video games to understand this. So our eyes probably start at the black bars and the selected jumpy text. Then they shift to Donkey Kong and Pauline. Motion is very attention grabbing, and their idle animations do a lot to draw our attention to them. After that, we look up to see change your style, which helps us figure out what we're doing in this menu in the first place. Then the text that tells us about the clothing, and finally in the bottom right, in small yellow text, we have the right stick to rotate and B to indicate that we're done changing. These are important, but not nearly as important as the other information they're showing us. There's kind of an expectation that we know the A button means progression, to click through to the next menu if there are submenus. And B usually means back, at least in menu UI on the Switch. Clicking into the submenu and getting a larger individual model was also a very smart move. We get to see what our character will look like in the game without guessing. The camera does a ton of legwork here, because if it's Donkey Kong's fur, you'll get a wide shot. If it's his neckwear, you'll get this zoom to better see what the difference is down to the tiniest details, like the battle bow emanating particles and these weird wave effects. And finally, when your selections are made, they give you what my UI professor would call a joy moment. Look at these beautiful beings, posing and flexing their newly adorned neckwear outfits and fur paint. Before I bore you with more menu specific things, don't worry, we'll do more of that for you menu enthusiasts. Let's talk about the HUD, or the heads-up display. This is the part of the user interface that you'll see while you're playing the game. It's super important information such as your health, how many power-ups you have, stuff like that. And let's practice that hierarchy test we did earlier. What stands out to you first? If you said the Bananza meter, you'd probably be correct. It's the biggest HUD icon and has very apparent motion to it with the flames in the background. And if you've played, well, any part of this game after the first Bananza transformation, you'd get why they do this. You're constantly transforming into these animals, and knowing when it's available and which one you have selected is paramount. The icons glowing against the dark background is also a very nice touch. Makes it feel vibrant and alive. Exactly like the concerts that happen to receive the power in the first place. I'd argue the second thing you'd notice appears when you're not actually moving. It's the L button, which you're prompted to hold in order to make music to get direction in the game. You're most likely looking at Donkey Kong while you play, or I guess through the camera or whatever you're trying to do, but having this pop up right in front of him is not my favorite thing. For a game that really excels in its open format where you can get bananas in any order, visit various sections of the map in whichever way you want, it's kind of annoying to see this thing pop up. I don't think I ever used it because it was usually somewhat clear of where I was supposed to go. Sometimes I also just want to take in the sights and relax, and didn't super love seeing this message pop up. It takes only 5 seconds for it to display once you stopped moving, and if it took like 10 or 15 instead of 5, I don't think I'd be as bugged. Because that's the thing with UI, and especially a heads-up display. Some of the best UI is invisible UI. You shouldn't notice it unless you really need it. It's the gameplay that should be your focus. The hearts at the very top left, they're red and stand out pretty good against most backgrounds in this game. It's important information. I'd like to know at a glance how many I have left, especially when fights start to get difficult. The icons below are nice because once you actually find these items in the game, you know what they do, and they're also easy to glance at. I didn't ever buy these from the shop or have very many, so I could have done without them on the HUD, but I don't think it hurts it by any means. Below that is your objective. And this makes me question even further why the prompt to find your way pops up. On the top right is all the currency you have, your gold, Banandium chips, and fossils. They're pretty non-intrusive, and I appreciate them being there, especially when I'm hunting for fossils, and now I need just a few more to get that costume I really want. As a whole, a very, very solid interface. I guess that leads us into the map. Oh, the map. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I opened the map through my playthrough maybe 6 times, and 3 were probably on accident. I never really teleported anywhere, and once I learned that you could just buy your clothing and accessories from the fractone that stands by your base, it just kind of feels unnecessary. If you play the game without trying to 100% it, I don't think it's something you really need to go into a lot like you do with Breath of the Wild or other open games where your objective can constantly be switching to different geographic points on the map. But in the short time I've spent on it, can't say I'm a fan. I remember trying to find a fossil because it showed up on my map from a treasure chest, and just not being able to quite find the spot it was leading me to. The load time from in-game to map and map to in-game was just long enough for me to start getting a little irritated. What's the solution? I got nothing. Because you're able to destroy pretty much everything and create your own cave systems, it's naturally just going to be a learning curve to understand how to work with this kind of map. I can speak for the iconography, and it's awesome. I understand what each marker is pointing to and what it means. The only text in the center of the map appears when you're hovering over something, and that's a great way to do it. Once again, they're knocking it out of the park with the contrast of having black text on the yellow background here. On the top right, you can see what bananas or fossils you have left to find, of the ones the treasure maps showed you, and then what you've already collected as well. It's pretty satisfying to go back to a layer and see the bananas with check marks across the map. If you go into the collection tab by hitting Y up here at the top, you get access to some fun stats. Which Banandium gems have you collected and what were their names? Look at the fossils you've collected and learn about them. And see your stats in terms of how much destruction you've caused. You didn't have to do that, Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development EPD Production Group number 8. That was so thoughtful. And a nice little user-friendly cherry on top is letting you look at the collections across the different layers so you don't have to travel to it in order to find out. Little things like that we take for granted. Oh, I also found out you can reset the terrain in this map. Nice. I've never done that. The last of the little UI things I want to talk about is photo mode. Oh yeah. Honestly, not too much to say about it besides it's a great photo mode, and one I used way more than like any other game I've ever played. So you're doing something right. I don't love all the filters, but being able to blur the backgrounds or even make stuff all silhouettes was very cool. It kind of reminds me of the levels in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, where everything is silhouettes and it's just beautiful. Now, to get into more of the design philosophy and just in general design of this game. If you couldn't tell, this game has an edge to it. Many, in fact. The game uses voxel technology. Voxel stands for volumetric pixel, according to Google. And they definitely embraced that as part of this game's design. The stars of the show, besides Donkey Kong and Pauline of course, are the fractones, little geometric freaks that love to be punched. Yeah, sounded about as weird as I thought it would. But you see geometry all over Donkey Kong Bananza's design. Am I a fan? Freaking look at me, I'm a triangle, of course I love it. Walk around to find pentagon grates, little cube ice cream thingies. Oh, those look so edible. And something I appreciated was that the gates to get to puzzles or secret levels or enemy fights all have this incorporated into its design. Once you notice it, you really can't stop noticing how geometrical everything is, and it really works for the game. I mean, cube watermelon, am I right? Something Nintendo is fantastic at in its design is utilizing its core mechanic to interact with other mechanics. So, what is Mario's thing? Some call him Jumpman, and if you said jump, you'd be 100% correct. How do you get over a pitfall in Mario? You jump. How do you defeat an enemy? You jump on it. How do you activate a P-switch? You flick it. No, you jump on it. Donkey Kong Bananza, same thing, but with punching. This kind of gets into button mapping and a UX principle called natural mapping. Let's look at the controller for a second. We're going to look at the Switch 2 Pro controller because I impulse bought it and need to find ways to justify my purchase. This game comes from the Mario team and they taught us to jump with the A or B button. Donkey Kong Bananza uses A, so that gives us 3 left. Are you following? Is this interesting at all? What does Donkey Kong do in this game? He punches. Naturally, X is at the top, Y is in the middle, and B is at the bottom. X equals punch up, Y equals punch forward, and bada bing bada boom, B is punch down. As soon as your brain gets this, which it took me until like the 3rd layer, not gonna lie, it just makes sense. Alright, did I cover everything? Menu UI, HUD, some philosophies. Ooh, yeah. totally almost forgot about the entire reason I wanted to create this video. Major spoilers ahead for Donkey Kong Bonanza. If you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to check out my video about DK Paint till you finish the game. So, we're talking UX design now, and what is UX? In short, user experience. In long, it's how a user interacts with and experiences a product, system, or service. It includes a person's perceptions of utility, ease of use, and efficiency. Also taken from Google. So now that you kind of know what it means, I want to talk about a very important tool that we use to gauge how people might be feeling when using a product or, in this sense, a video game. It's called a user journey map, and it looks something like this. Hopefully this oddly specific example of finding a doctor helps you understand. But I thought about what my journey map would have looked like as I played through Donkey Kong Bonanza. Where were the peaks? Where were the valleys? Because this game is very polished, there honestly weren't a ton of valleys. But that also doesn't mean there were a ton of peaks. I think it took me till the canyon layer to really get into the game and understand it. It just kind of makes sense for growing pains to happen when you start a game. It's a whole new experience you have to navigate through. You need to learn new systems. What's your purpose? How do you control your freaking character? It's a lot. And so I don't think you should expect to be immediately hooked on a game. And for me, for Bonanza, it wasn't like that. When I saw that punching was DK's thing, I assumed you were supposed to literally punch everything. But the longer I played, the more I realized that, no, sonar is not cheating, but it's a power-up I'm given to make it more efficient to find Bonandian gems or fossils, and I still have to punch things to get said gems and fossils. These little revelations helped me to understand where I have fun in the game and what I like to do. I've never been a 100%er, so making me play a collectathon, yeah, that's kinda rough. But Donkey Kong Bonanza is smart. Every collectible has a purpose. Fossils have a purpose. Chips have a purpose. Bonandian gems can upgrade abilities, heck, even gold is valuable. And making you lose as much as you do if you die, that's stakes. We like stakes and we like our gold. So Ingot Isle, Lagoon Layer, Hilltop Layer, it was alright, it was fun enough that I didn't want to quit, but once I saw those minecarts in the canyon layer, it was all uphill from there. My journey map spiked. Then I got to the divide layer. You see this poor Fractone stuck in the purple void crap, and you're like, whoa, are we getting Portal vibes? What is happening here? Spike on the journey map. Then you get to the forest layer, and finally get to the Eggshell Hotel. Wonderful hotel, great service, journey map spike. Then I get to the freeze layer, and I hear the freaking Zebra Bonanza transformation song, spike on the map. This all happens and the bar is getting raised more and more the more I play it. I still remember fighting Void Kong that first time vividly, because I died like 4 times. They gave us punching bags for bosses, and then went full throttle with no warning. Having to travel to old layers and fight Void was yet again another spike on the journey map. I keep playing, spikes are happening. They're great. I'm not convinced I had my Mario Odyssey jump up superstar moment quite yet, but that's alright. I guess there was also the snake layer, which kind of a dip in the journey. I don't know, I wanted to love it, but I didn't like the transformation and wasn't catching the vibe. But we get to a point where we're at the climax of the game. You reach the Bonandium route and you're fighting Void Kong. Adrenaline is pumping, I'm making insane snipes and plays on stream in front of tens of people.
Oh, I hit him! Holy, somebody clip that! Somebody clip that! I actually hit him.
He's finally down for the count and then shoots DK and turns him into stone. I immediately know it's going down. Pauline has to sing and she sang. Fat spike on the journey map. It's a beautiful song. We heard it in the direct and it sounds so much better and feels way more impactful when we're thinking about our time with the game, with getting to know Pauline, whose voice actor just absolutely killed it. And we get a touching reunion that is immediately crashed when Void Kong rushes to the Bonandium route. He's about to make his wish, and this is why I wanted to make this video. The UX law, peak end rule. People judge an experience largely based on how they felt at its peak and at its end, rather than the total sum or average of every moment of the experience. At this point in the game, I had plenty of peaks to already establish this game as one of the greats, but when King K. Rool bursts onto the scene, I knew it was GG's. Game over, the king has returned, and he's never looked better. What's cool about K. Rool is, even though we haven't seen him in a main Donkey Kong game since Donkey Kong 64, I think that's right, please fact check me if I'm not, a lot of us Nintendo fans are still very familiar with who he is. We didn't have to play the original Donkey Kong countries to know. We played Mario Super Sluggers, the greatest Mario sports game of all time, don't at me. We also have been fighting as or against him since 2018 with the release of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We were primed and ready for his return, and they decided to do it in a big way. It's also nice that we got little breadcrumbs to follow and hint at his return. Crocoids, or skeleton versions of the Kremlings, were some of the tougher enemies we had to fight thus far, and finally seeing them in all their glory in the lead up to your fight with K. Rool was such a feeling. So we've been having spikes on our journey map, right? At this point, we're reaching some pretty significant highs, and it only keeps going for like 2 more hours. I rolled credits, and life was cool. Too cool.
What? What do you mean? Question mark.
How about ending this game with the ravaging K. Rool flying with his stupid helicopter hat thing while you can see one of the coolest UI elements with the depth meter shooting up as you burrow up towards the surface and then it hits. K. Rool isn't just going to give you a great build-up and boss fight, he's going to pull the rug from under you, Hades from Kid Icarus Uprising style, and give you the best this game has to offer. You're swapping from Bananza transformation to Bananza transformation, using the skills each beast has to offer, and wow, you are glad these icons are as big as they are on the HUD, because that final fight was vicious. Gangplank Galleon is blaring, and you're fighting the most disgusting, most hideous, freaking coolest boss fight in a 3D platform, ever? Is it even close? The spike is no longer a spike, but an exponential 90-degree blast into the stratosphere. You fight the good fight, win the good fight, and are greeted with more beautiful Pauline vocals as you descend from that high, literally, and get a chance to reminisce about your adventures. And they make it real easy to reminisce because they're showing you pictures of your adventure while you're falling. Donkey Kong Bananza is an exemplary example of the peak end rule. Its lows don't even come close to its highs, and it sticks the landing flawlessly. I could go on and on about the different things that I liked about Donkey Kong Bananza that I failed to mention, but I didn't want this to turn into an hour-long babble. But hey, maybe y'all would like that. Overall, Donkey Kong Bananza has solid UI that sticks to its brand, represents the game, and prioritizes a good user experience. If you enjoyed this dive into the design of Donkey Kong Bananza, consider subscribing and sharing this with a friend. I upload every single week. I also missed a few things because I got a little carried away, and the video was getting pretty long. So let me know what I missed, and if I should do a follow-up or not with more little nuggets. Huge thanks to my patrons who support me here on YouTube and on Patreon. You guys are helping me get one step closer to my dream of doing YouTube full-time. If you want to help me turn this dream into a dream job, I'd really appreciate your support. Links to my Patreon, YouTube memberships, and Discord server are all in the description down below. If you want to know what I think about Mario Kart World's UI design, click the video that'll pop up. Thanks for watching, I appreciate you being here, and as always...
Thank you for all your support!
I got chills.